I'm not sure if you know it, but denominational leaders in every church in North America and most local church pastors know it, that by 2050, only 31 years from now, most of the churches in our country will probably be gone. Between 100 and 200 churches die every week in the United States of America. All you have to do is go to Europe, to Rome, and go into one of these amazing churches where they have an endowment, so the building is kept beautiful. And there'll be a priest and maybe one or two people worshiping where there used to be thousands. And you might say to yourself, how did this happen? Well, we've been on a 1700-year run of institutional Christianity. It started with the Emperor Constantine, who made Christianity the religion of the Roman Empire. And therefore, everyone who's a citizen had to go. You may not know it, but the Dover Church itself was originally funded by taxpayer money. We talk about separation of church and state, but in towns like Dover, in the days of the Puritans, your taxes paid for the congregational meeting house. And then even in the 1960s and 70s of my childhood, there was expectation that everyone went somewhere, someplace on the weekend, right? On Friday night, the Jews went to worship. On Saturday night, the Catholics went to worship. And on Sunday morning, the Protestants went to worship. And it was sort of equated with being a good citizen, a good American, that whole one nation under God. But since my childhood, and most of you are old enough to have grown in that same time, you'll know that the bottom has fallen out. That younger generations are no longer interested in the institution of the church. They're particularly not interested in things like denominations with hierarchies and people far away telling us what to do. Also, too many of our religious organizations have been unhealthy, with bad behavior going on. And for anyone watching us, they could say, you know, they're not really living what they profess they believe. And then there's also the part about what we do on a Sunday morning. We have these rituals, we have these teachings, we have these songs and musical forms which have come down through the ages to us, but they haven't been translated into an idiom that people who have no idea what they're about would understand. Younger people are not buying into participating and engaging in institutions the way the folks who lived through the Second World War did. And so in our country, there are huge numbers of people who describe themselves as spiritual, but not religious. Now, there are some churches in America that are holding the line. In other words, keeping going on as if it were the 1950s. The fundamentalist churches that have a theology where it's very black and white. If you're with us, you're saved. If you're not with us, you're damned. It's all about fear and judgment and about being the beloved, pure community. It's only a matter of time before those communities start to erode, because fear does not motivate modern people. And there's another kind of church that's still holding the line, and that's the ecstatic church, the Pentecostal church, where when you go to worship, it's like a rock concert. You go in there and the energy is up and you get jacked up and you leave completely on fire. It's like going to the Super Bowl. And then you go out into the world for another week. And then there's one final group of churches that are still holding the line. Churches, we call them mainline churches, but they're not the mainline anymore, but Congregational, Lutheran, Baptist, Methodist, that have the combination of outstanding staff and endowments to cover the lean times, where if you show up, the worship is good, and by that I mean meaningful, and you get a sense of the holy, You feel God's love. You feel the sense of community. The programs are good for the children. The coffee hour is nice. People aren't anxious about money all the time. And they're doing good work in the world. And I would say, not to brag, but I would say this church is in that group. But many things can change in 30 years. I mean, when I think about 30 years, I only have 10 more years of pastoral ministry left, maybe 15 to be with you. So where does that leave us here in the church of what I call the church of low expectations? And before you get your backs up in the air about low expectations, let's be honest, because we are in church and thou shalt not lie. We don't expect you to be here every Sunday. In fact, we expect you to not be here on certain Sundays, like the ones in the summer and the Sunday after Christmas and one of the Sundays of February-April vacation. And we're okay with that. But we do hope that you're nourished enough to want to come rather than afraid not to come. And of course, the problem with the low expectation is if you take too many Sundays off, you lose the taste for it. We don't expect many of you to tithe the church, to give 10% of your money to the church, as they do in other churches. No matter what you give, we thank you. And you're still welcome here, an equal member with everyone. Now, the flip side is of course, if most of us who had the means to do much did little, we'd be in trouble. We don't expect all of you to volunteer huge amounts of time to leading the church, but we do hope that you feel so enthusiastic about the church's ministries and missions that at some point in your life you'll want to be part of leadership. Now, of course, the flip side is, of course, if most of us who had a little spare time decided to opt out and do something else instead, and leave the leading of the church to others, we'd be in trouble. We don't expect you to believe absolutely everything that's in the creed or in the Bible or even agree with me on any given Sunday. We welcome everyone wherever they are, just like we said in the call to worship. In fact, if I was to say one thing, we are a church that welcomes questions. But we do have to be about faith, particularly Christianity, because there needs to be some center that holds us together. So when we drift and become about something else, we get into trouble. We don't expect you to sign up for all those Bible studies and spiritual growth opportunities and women's retreats and dinners with the youth group and all the other things that we have in our announcements. But we do hope that God tickles you enough that you want to dive deeper and either investigate on your own or join one of these groups or talk to me. Now, when I say that we're the church or a church of low expectations, I don't mean that you have low expectations. You expect quite a lot. You expect meaningful preaching, right? You expect good worship with good music, well presented, and that while the children are over in Sunday school, they're learning something meaningful in a respectful and safe and pleasant environment. And when your children come to youth group, they're up to holy things, even if they're not aware of it. And that the building is kept in good repair by the House and Grounds Committee. And when we go to coffee hour, it's very pleasant and everyone's nice to each other. And that the church is full of good people who are nice, doing good things. And that the church is doing some good in the world. But the problem is many of us don't see ourselves as serious as other churches. Which I would like to point out to those people who don't think that we're as serious as other churches. You wouldn't want to go to those churches in the first place because they're way too serious for you, or you'd be there and not here. So why do you value their seriousness? Right? If you want to go to court, commit a crime, you go to court, you'll see seriousness. And so members of our church, and I'm just saying members of our church, but it was the same at the Higginham Congregational Church and the Houseneck Congregational Church, the Second Congregational Church of Cohasset, First Congregational Church of Shrewsbury, every place I've ever been. We tend to be sheepish about what we do here. Whereas if someone were to say to you, you can't come to whatever it is on Sunday morning at 10? Yeah, I go to church. Or apologetic. If someone says, you go to church? Well, we're not that kind of church. In fact, I've been with some of you socially around town where you define the Dover Church as the church of not. As in, well, we're not Catholic. And we're not fundamentalist. And we're not holy rollers. And we're not uptight and judgmental. We're not any of those church stereotypes. When we should be saying what we are. I'm going to blow you away right now. We are a mission outpost on this hill. Because we are an open and affirming church where everyone, absolutely everyone, is welcome. And that is not so in other churches, where no matter who you are or what you believe or who you love or what your skin color or economics or politics or your abilities are, you are welcome here. We are an evolving church. We evolve in how we worship, the words we use, the ways we pray, the songs we sing. We are evolving on how we understand what God's up to and how we're part of it. We evolve in who is here. The church, right? Here is the church. Here is the steeple. Open the door and see all the people. It's the people. And as the people change, the church changes. Now, I'm not trying to get every one of you to shoehorn into a size 1957 church ladies dress or a size 1963 church guy's wingtip lace-up shoes. I'm using those as figurative. We're not our parents or our grandparents. God bless them. They raised us in the church. But we are here to be the church for the next people who come. And we need to speak and be the church in a way that they can see God's love in our midst. And there are other churches that don't care. They're just going forward, status quo. So as we listen for new ways to witness to God's love in this place, in our community of Dover, in the wider world, we should do so without shame or embarrassment, which is another one of those funny things. Sort of, we're a little bit ashamed and embarrassed that we're Christians because of those other Christians. And the ways that they differ from us make us ashamed and embarrassed with the things they say and the people they denounce. So we're ashamed to say that we're Christians because we're afraid that people will think that we think and do like they think and do, and that we're just pretending to be nice in here. Do you follow me? My friends, the church at the beginning is the church now and the church always. We need to keep evolving. We need to stay nimble. We need to be creative and stay true to our understanding of faith and fellowship. Everything I listed there. And as the king said, we do need everyone to help financially support this mission outpost. And we do need as many of you as can to share your gifts with us of time and talent so that we can do the ministries and missions of the church in this place. And that's all I have to say about that. If you have a gift,